Hey guys, welcome back to the 4th episode. Since he doesn't like his nickname, we're going to start this over again.
Are we?
Yeah.
I hope that this podcast goes above and beyond. You get so many viewers. I don't want to be known as Bustin' Cream.
Yep.
That is not an ideal nickname.
You just said it again, Busting Cream, right?
Well, that's it. I mean, it's catchy. So
It is, and it's going to take off because it's just offensive enough.
Yep. That's it. So, we kind of talked about our fun interactions with nursing homes on the last episode.
We did.
Which are generally stupid.
All right.
And
tragic.
Not people, by the way, staff.
Staff.
We're going to be very clear with that.
Facilities themselves, the people that run it, and the people that are making a profit off of the suffering of the elderly.
Correct.
This episode will kind of lump that in as we're not making fun of the patients.
None of this is patient.
And we're not
humor.
necessarily making fun of people. We're telling stories that are justifiably dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
I feel like this episode's going to be a little more serious. There might be some chuckles sprinkled in here and there, but I do not feel very chuckly with what we're about to talk about.
Yeah,
absolutely
This
not.
won't really be a very chuckly one.
I kind of just want to get into it and just give some context for what happened.
Correct. So let's...
Dude,
I know. Yep. So we do have to be a bit vague.
we do have to be a bit
I think a
vague.
lot of this comes down to patient advocacy.
Yes.
Working in EMS, working in fire, working in law enforcement, being any type of, front-facing first responder.
Yeah.
I think that, especially really over the last, handful of years, especially since there's been a giant decline in first responders coming out of school or even getting into the career because it's just becoming almost unmanageable. So the quality of applicants and quality of people aren't quite there. I feel like we are progressing down the not giving enough of fuck about the patients. I think it's very easy for us to turn into the funny haha jokes and then walk away, and there's not enough advocacy because it really hasn't come from agencies, because then that means that the agencies also have to take responsibility for bad training or bad operations. So it's very much it can easily become a under the rug fuck up and be like, oh, well, they tried their best, right?
And their best wasn't good.
And their best wasn't good enough. And sometimes that happens. Well, also sometimes you fuck up and you make a dumb fucking decision.
Yeah. And the question is, are those decisions intentional and
preventable?
Is it worse if they're not intentional?
Correct.
And that all comes to, choosing a proper destination and being a patient advocate, which is a core tenet of being an EMS and a first responder in the first place. You do what's right for the patient.
Yes.
That's what the job's about.
Yeah.
I've said multiple times, the reason why I've gotten into EMS obviously isn't to get rich. You're going to make a living in EMS. You're not going to get rich. This isn't the place to come and collect a solid paycheck every week. You're going to get paid enough to come back and work another shift. You're going to pay for your expenses. I didn't get in it to get rich. I got in it for 2 reasons. From a young age, I've always wanted to work the least amount of days and make a living. And the second one is because I love helping people. Not to sound sappy, but I love helping people. I like to be there in someone's dire need when they need help, whether it's emotionally, physically, or whatever it may be. And I'm a huge proponent for patient advocacy. That's a perfect term, and for what we do. If you're not a patient advocate, you should not be an EMS.
Right. And those calls, which are admittedly far and few between, those are the thing that allow a lot of people to stay in this career because they are extremely rewarding. People want to hear crazy fun stories. They just want to hear silly stuff that is out of their, it's beyond their horizon. And those rewarding stories, they're not interesting to other people. most of the time. And a lot of times you aren't doing anything that's necessarily life-saving, but it's meaningful and impactful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you're there for somebody, just, you know, like 85% of our calls anywhere, unless you're in like a big city with a lot of, you know,
like downtown, like a downtown metro place where you're running a lot more traumas, a lot more, you know, domestics and stuff like that.
Right. Unless you're doing that consistently, you're going to get burnt out. That's like IFT. You're going to get burnt out doing that because you just see some stuff. That's a different kind of burnout.
And you'll still get burnt out doing that.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's very easy, like coming from two places that were very metro city like. It was very easy because you're like, oh, someone just got stabbed again. Someone just got shot again.
Right.
Oh, this is another overdose. And you're like, blah, 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 blah. It's you're just swapping, oh, grandma fell. Or
grandma got stabbed.
Or for the equivalent of, oh, grandma did some stabbing.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's very easy to get burned out. And the problem is there's no recognized, I guess, backup or treatment for people. So like, I mean, we had the person that we kind of relieved the other day, right? On our last shift, right?
Yeah. Yep.
The two people that got into it.
Yep.
You can very much tell that the more senior person there is crispy. He had zero tolerance. He had zero forgiveness, and everything was, everything was a cardinal sin that the other person was doing wrong. Now, don't get me wrong. The other person is young and kind of a fucking idiot.
Dangerous.
Yeah. But he hasn't been around the people that are older to teach them.
The right people.
It's two. There's two errors here. You have a person who's young and I know everything. And you have a person who's old that says, fuck this guy. I've been here for 25 fucking years and I'm done with it. I have one more year to go and I'm out.
Yeah.
And this is where we're failing. Is because you have new people that are like, oh, I can do anything and I can do whatever I want because I have an insane licensure. And this person who's like, I have one more year. I don't give a fuck about anything. And there's no resources to help this person. And there are resources to help this person, but they're not being forced to take it. Like there's no consequences, right?
Right.
So like, even if you did say something, they're like, well, he'll learn.
Well, they're there for the amount of time they're there for.
Yeah, they're there when they're there, you know?
So, and those two people are going to be the ones that are going to be not providing patient advocacy.
Correct.
Because they either didn't learn how to, or they're not interested in doing it anymore. Because it does take extra work and it takes you sacrificing your sleep, your time, your meal.
And don't get me wrong, that stuff, I get hangry, you know, I get overtired. Sometimes I'll just be like, why am I doing this? And you just have to realize that's why you have to come back, regardless of how many years you have in EMS, or like you could have 6 months in EMS or 30 plus years in EMS. If you remember where you came from, you remember your first day of EMT school or being that like interested in something. If you remember that, that's so humbling because we've all made mistakes. We've all been there where that new person is. We've all been there. It's nothing new. You can't just get your paramedic one day. You have to take the steps. You have to get your EMT. Then you're advanced. If you do that, then you're paramedic. You need those hours, that experience. And even if you just go to school, you don't even work private EMS. You start as an EMT and you're just in school to your paramedic. You learn along that way. You knew nothing at one point.
Yeah.
You know, you're a baby to this at one point, whether it's 30 years ago or 6 months ago. There's nothing new. And that's going to be so humbling.
Yeah.
If you look back, even if you're burnt out or if you're lashing out at someone, whether it's your partner or a supervisor or something, and you think back, wow, I was new once. All right. You know, I was in this position, or I understand this. You know, I understand it from your point of view. You know, and EMS has changed a whole lot in 30 years. So,
absolutely,
you know, maybe listen to what this person has to say. Be that humble. I always tell anyone new I work with, or, you know, whether they've been in it longer than me or if they're brand new, I always say, listen, speak up. If you have like a recommendation on what we could do better, or if you have a question on why I did something, it might be because my experience traveled with me from where I used to be. And that's what I know. But if you have a better way to do it, whether you're more experienced, less experienced, or right in the middle, tell me. I want to learn this.
Right.
You know, it's an ever-changing field that we work in. So you have to be flexible.
Yeah. Having people in this career with that mentality is very refreshing because a lot of services that aren't as privileged as ours is, there's a lot of the eating the young. And, you know, when you're running up in the teens calls every 24 hours, you don't want to teach somebody. You don't want that extra workload. And that's understandable. And that's where I cut my teeth, is in a service like that. And people hated me the entire time I was there. And we transported yesterday, and I saw my old supervisor, and he was still giving me shit and kind of, you know, making fun of me the way he did when I was in my early 20s. So it's here we have a lot of good people, but we also have people that have come from that same sort of environment. And
there's a lot of butting heads, especially in like fire. You know, you get hell bent on fire. I'm a firefighter, but you don't catch any fire jobs. You're not a firefighter. You're a lot of fire departments strive off of EMS, whether you transport or you go to the call. And that's how it is. And I wasn't necessarily liked by a lot of the people where I came from because I spoke out about certain things. You know, I was a huge patient advocate, and I wanted to push our EMS department beyond what it could be. The capabilities of what it was just not working out. We weren't doing enough. We were fire medics. And now the people who've taken over, I communicate with them. They're doing an amazing job. They have all sorts of like training set up. They got trials and they got equipment ordered appropriately. It's just like I went back to visit, and it's just like 180-degree change. You know, it's amazing to see that people are stepping up, but it took so much pushing. It took people stepping down and realizing this could be better without me involved. You know, firefighters hate two things: the way things have always been and change. And you're not going to get anywhere with that old school fire mentality. Or old school private EMS mentality.
Right.
So,
and that is one thing that's that's hard. And I know that there's and I'm going to preface this too, is I have a ton of respect for, and I've talked to a couple of the guys that run those like EMS meme pages and stuff like that. And I very much understand the risk of like putting your name and face on stuff, because they've made some very bold statements. And stuff like that. And
we could make some of those too.
And and I feel, and I don't care because my name's on it. Like one of the pages, and I even have, like, we've talked about it. I don't know if we have the sticker right here. Dude, this guy just shits on private EMS, and it is so earned. What is it? 6 inches at the teeth. The meme page, dude. The page is hilarious. But he just rips on, like, specifically like AMR and like the private services and stuff. I think there's such a failure. You're not providing emergency medical services. If you have a profit margin at the end of the year, to where you're like, hey, we ran EMS and we made X millions of dollars doing this, you're doing something wrong, because all of that money needs to go back into providing more trucks, providing more crews.
Right.
Which
better education.
Better education. All of that goes back to helping your service. The problem is that people learned how to make a penny off of sucking the government's teat, and now it's turned into a billing game. And now it's hey, because the first thing you'll get back, way more than a clinical question, and I know a lot of people, if people listen to this, the two people that'll listen to this, you will more than likely, your kickbacks on your report are not because of a performance issue. They're not like, hey, did you perform up to standard? Hey, what was your thinking on your medical treatment? Why did you do this? Like, not even for any specific reason. It's, hey, did you do XYZ? If you did XYZ, please put this in your report.
Right.
Not because of, I'm not saying that hey, you missed something, or hey, it's not worded correctly. I'm saying you're going to get kickbacks saying, hey, write it, make sure that it's documented this way, in this manner, this style, and that's strictly for billing.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And it's not, and yes, totally understand everyone needs to get paid, but are we losing? I'm not even gonna say are we. I think that everyone, for a lot of these agencies, the ones I've had people that I know work for and stuff like that, everything is a dollars and cents game, not a people game.
Nothing pisses me off more than the billing tab on our reports.
Yeah.
What breaks my heart mostly is when you're at the house of a sick patient. You know, like, all right, we might be going lights and sirens to the hospital because this person's sick, and they're concerned about bringing their insurance card. Nothing pisses me off more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You shouldn't worry about that.
That should not be a thing.
Or if you have a sick patient, like we had a guy who was an SVT, and he's like, no, I don't want to go because I got a huge bill last time.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's such a materialistic thing that can get figured out. You could have a heart attack because of this issue. Like your heart is beating so many times that it's going to fail eventually.
Yeah. Welcome to America.
Yeah, right.
Well, that's that's a whole social thing that comes into play there. But it's,
this isn't an economic and political podcast.
Yeah. But
the other thing too, we've talked about off camera, that is probably I don't know. I mean, it's not probably, it's the reason we kind of started talking about this is making sure that you are capable of understanding to know what to do for your patient, and not being a lazy bag of dicks and being like, well, I can go to this hospital, but this hospital is closer, or this hospital, I can get back to the station faster if I go to this hospital. I'll do one whole example. One of the first calls I was on in another state was a 6-person, all children ejection rollover in early evening, nighttime. All the way, they were all unrestrained. It was driven by a 17-year-old, and it went all the way down to 2 years old. High speed, rollover, all kids ejected. All of those kids should go to a pediatric trauma facility.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
All of them have to go see the best physicians to take care of them in their immediate emergent need. Now, there is because we had to call for mutual aid, there's a fire service that says, oh, this was a fire transport service, an ALS fire transport service. Came in from 20-something minutes east to the call to get one of the kids, and should have gone another 30 minutes west to get them to the hospital. But instead, they went back 20-something minutes east to get back into their county and dropped a pediatric head injury ejection out of a car at 80 fucking miles an hour at a essentially tertiary facility. And so then, not even an hour later, that company is calling around any agency, hey, do you have a critical care truck that can come out and get this? Because the main hospital that has the pediatric transport unit is already out taking another kid from that wreck who is at a different tertiary facility. Everyone fucked up. Like that is a global fuck up all the way around.
I think that comes down to incident management too. You should tell them where they're going at that point if you're in control.
But there was no control. There was no necessarily a there was no like supervisor that ended up making it out to that call. But you should have the wherewithal to say, hey, I should probably get them to the best doctor.
Yeah.
Like who is the doctor? You need to understand your hospitals, and you need to know when they don't have the capability. You're not helping that hospital at all.
Right.
That hospital, you are fucking that hospital, because now you're going to bring in an absolute shit show and be like, here you go. Here's this kid. He was thrown out of a car going 80 miles an hour. He has no face left. He's got a dented in head. Like, figure it out. And they're like,
you should keep the crew there to transfer.
Yep. You should.
Yeah. Continuation of care has always been a dream, but that's never going to happen.
They teach you that in school. They say, oh, let's say I'm south, right? I'm working south of where we are. And I have, let's say, a pediatric patient, right? Pediatric patient, traumatic injury, they're declining. If I need a doctor, I'm stopping at a facility that's on the way. Otherwise, I'm going to beat feet to a level 1 trauma.
Yeah,
right.
You get them there. There's one, if you don't have an airway and you need an airway, if you need blood, those are all things where you're like, hey, I need this very, very second.
Right.
Because you don't like being in this situation is not the reason to go to a bullshit facility.
Being scared is not.
Yeah, that is not the answer.
Yeah.
But you're going to stay. If you do bring them there, you're going to stay.
You should.
I'll stay and I'll say, listen, I know this isn't the right facility, but I needed the airway taken. I needed blood.
Yes.
I needed a doctor to look at this patient to stabilize them.
And I'm going to hang out here.
And I'm going to hang out
and do this and then go back out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then don't shit talk the doctor when they start freaking out and try and play down what happened.
Yeah.
Because if people keep telling you you look like a horse, one of the things you should do is look in a mirror. And when these paramedics bring in these traumatic pediatric injuries, they're like, well, the doctor's being crazy and freaking out. It's like, maybe they're freaking out for a reason.
Yeah.
Maybe you fucked up.
Yeah. One thing I don't do, adults, I take every emergency seriously. Obviously, I'm a patient advocate. But one thing I don't mess around with on scene is children.
Yeah.
I don't care how old if they're under 18, even if they're a young adult, I don't mess around with that. They can still decompensate really fast. You know, they're not completely grown.
They're the quickest to decompensate. Well, they're the most sudden decompensators,
right?
Because they'll be fine, and then all of a sudden you're like,
yep,
it's over.
Yep.
But yeah,
I always over dramatize those in a sense where, can this facility really handle this? We had like this child was they gave home birth, healthy baby, Apgar scores 8. They're using they had muscle retractions when they were breathing in low O2 sats. So the nurse there put them on CPAP. We don't have the neonate CPAP. So the nurse wrote in the back, I said, well, you know, if anything goes wrong, since they decompensate so quickly, especially a newborn, 2 hours old, I think we should go to, almost let it slip there, but I think we should go to a level 1 pediatric facility in case.
Yeah.
And they were like, no, this should be fine. I'm like, well, if they need to take the airway, then they're going to be transferred anyway.
Yeah, you don't control my truck.
Well, then the midwife and the nurse on scene were like talking to the parents, and no, we can go here. We can go here. This is okay. And the midwife got on the phone with the NICU nurse at this facility that we wound up going to. You guys know. And she was like, yeah, we're going to bring this. Is this okay? Like, we're just concerned about muscle retractions, you know, when the baby's breathing. And obviously, like, I'm thinking that too, like, yeah, we can go here, but I'm thinking worst case scenario. Like, what if this baby, 2 hours old, who, you know, what if they start to decompensate super fast? What if CPAP doesn't work and we need to take the airway?
Right.
Like,
or even more invasive stuff.
Right.
Correct. And then that's the problem, is the midwife or that person, their care has ended.
Right.
So that is I have privileges at this hospital, but I don't have privileges at this hospital.
Right.
Your privileges end. No, they're done.
That's a tough story too.
They're done right now.
Yeah.
You are in my truck.
It's a tough thing to say too, because the nurse came with me because it was her equipment and everything.
Yeah.
That would have been, if that baby decompensated, that's a tough conversation to have, where you have a nurse in the back, or even if you have a doctor riding and you have to say, this is my truck, this is my call, this is my patient.
Yeah.
That's a tough thing to say to someone you're working with.
It
Because
is.
according to the scale, we are below nurses. That's just how it is. We might be able to do some things they can't, but their certification, theirs is a licensure. Ours is a certification. You know, we're not necessarily protected in a sense with a certification. So that's a tough thing to say to someone who supersedes you, even a doctor. Unless you follow the protocol of, physician's orders on scene, then you get your medical director involved. But it just delays patient care. And that's not patient advocacy.
That's right. That's when you call your dad. That's when you call, or your mom, I guess.
Right.
You call that medical director and you're like, hey, this is what's going on.
Right.
You can like, case in point, the call that none of us are going to bring up, but we all know what happened.
We've been dropping hints.
Yeah. What should have happened was that medic, one, shouldn't have even had to question where he needed to go.
Yeah.
Like, there wasn't even a, oh, well, maybe they can.
Yeah.
No.
Not even
Wrong.
questionable.
Not even a questionable call. You fucked up.
It's laziness.
I don't even know if it was lazy. I just think I panicked. It's a
one
panic.
of two things. He either should have known or he did know. And at this point, it's just which one of those is worse.
Right. It's too late. I mean, we can't bash what's happened. It's happened.
Yes.
And the right thing was done, and that they wound up taking them to the right facility in the end.
Yeah.
But what needs to happen more, and if you don't know, or if you're panicking,
Call for help.
Call for help. Call your medical director.
Call a supervisor.
Call the hospital.
Call another truck.
Yeah.
Ask your partner.
Yeah.
Something.
I mean, that could have easily ended or been avoided by a quick phone call to say, hey, this is what I have, XYZ, blah, 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 blah. I just want to make sure this is something that should go here or should not go here, because that doctor will immediately, because you're not transporting there, any of that, that doctor would have immediately said, hey, unless you have to bypass us for any reason or anything like that, you should immediately go here.
Yeah.
Like, you need to go there. If you have any questions or anything, or if you you need to recognize if you are flustered or panicked or you don't feel comfortable in a situation. If you don't, step back, because you're making it worse. Step back and then call someone who does.
Yeah.
Call a supervisor, call a medical director. Hey man, this is what I have. Is this bad? And if that medical director is like, hey, yeah, this is not good, you need to go here, then that's perfectly avoidable. But yeah, there's
just comes down to knowing your protocols, common sense, and patient advocacy.
Be a patient advocate.
That's it. If you realize that fell under like trauma criteria, then
it's not even just those calls. I know for a fact I've seen calls come out of places where it's like, so there will be counties south of us, and they're like, especially the lower the sun gets, the closer towards dinner and bedtime it gets. When you have the outlying counties that are like, hey, we have this person, or we picked up a person that like, hey, had surgery recently at this facility way up here,
which is an hour and 20 minute transport.
Is an hour and hour and a half transport, but I can make it to this facility in 30 minutes, and he's having complications with that surgery. That person needs to go there.
Yes.
Don't go here. You are a piece of shit. You're a piece of shit if you stop here.
Yep.
They know exactly what they're doing.
Unless they're dying.
Right.
Unless they are dying, you're a piece of shit.
Yeah.
If you don't want to do it, don't work there.
Yeah.
Don't fucking do the job. Go do construction. Go work at the post office.
Yeah. Investment banking.
Yeah. Yeah. Go sell crypto. You will be equally as successful selling crypto as you will working in a outlying county or whatever. We've had it all the time. I've seen crews coming in and coming out bitching from the ER to be like, yeah, we're taking another one up to whatever big, large hospital because this dumb fucking crew wouldn't take them there because they said that it was outside of, it was outside of their transport zone, even though it's very well understood that it's not. If they need to go there, they have to go there. Like,
Right.
it's that is it. That's continuity of care. But they know that they can shave off, 25 minutes each way, plus more than likely a quicker access to a bed, and they can dump it and not get stuck in traffic, and they get an extra hour back in their day to go back, shove their face full of food.
You know what I say?
And,
I always say we work 24 hours at a time. We're getting paid for 24 hours. I could do 24 hours worth of work, not sleep a wink. And, I'd like to eat something at some point, whether it's from an EMS room or, whether it's back at the station. But as long as I'm eating, I'm getting paid. And then we can recover the next day.
Yeah.
Even if you have kids, it's okay. You'll find time to recover. And by the time you work your next 24, if you're not, picking up overtime, that is, then you'll sleep. You'll sleep eventually. You'll recover eventually.
Yeah.
Another thing is, as far as that's concerned, a huge thing lately since I've been in EMS, I don't know how long it's been going on, is patient choice. I'm okay with patient choice. But if you have this person saying, complaining of, abdominal pain, and they have history of, knee surgeries at X facility that's overrun, they're the hospital, and they want to go to the hospital, I'm not going to bring them there. I'm not saying I'm not going there because I don't want to drive there. I'm saying you're going to wait. You're going to go to the triage, that sticker speaks a lot of volume. You're going to go to triage. If you have belly pain that's been going on for a few days, or you have flu-like symptoms, I suggest, if you want to go to the hospital, go to the closest appropriate. You won't have a problem with your insurance. Even though I hate the insurance, the billing cycle, you won't have a problem with that because we're not bypassing any facilities. And you're going to get seen probably fairly quickly. The turnover rate for that, is fairly quick. Minor symptoms.
Yeah, I mean, if it's I understand. Like if it's an unrelated, not necessarily like a chronic injury and like issue and stuff like that. Yeah, I can get it. The issue is when it's when you're like, oh hey, I have a cardiologist at whatever hospital, and that hospital is 40 minutes away. Well, this hospital is 15 minutes away.
Yeah.
But
if he's complaining of chest pain, take him to where he's followed.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
Yeah.
But if there's any remote, like, hey, this is, I have chronic issues and I'm established here and these are where my chronic care doctors are, take them to the chronic care doctors.
Right.
Because there's going to be continuity of care. You're going to have quicker access to medical records, or at least a facility.
Because they're probably, they have a relationship with those clinics and the care providers, not necessarily just their primary care provider, but they're going to have seen multiple people there.
Yeah. It's the whole, well, yeah, but you know what they can do? We can get you in here real quick, and then if they have to, they'll transfer you out.
It's drinking the Kool-Aid. It's so tempting.
Of course, I know. It's so easy to do.
But it's not right.
Because
the busier the service, the more tempting it is.
Yeah.
And everything we've talked about, I had fallen into that trap early on in my career, and I actually ended up at a station that was in a hospital parking lot that was halfway between the home hospital and the big hospital in the city, and people would dump patients there all day long.
Yep.
And
so
you were the emergency transfer.
You got the short end of the stick
Yeah.
for everyone dumping patients.
Yeah, it was a tertiary facility, and people were bringing in like unrestrained head-on collisions with a pediatric patient who has bilateral femur fractures. Massive burns.
It's so funny because it's very specific. So this is not like made up shit. You see just terrible patient care, and
Yeah.
there's no one pointing
Yeah.
fingers. That's the issue.
Right.
No one is nearly upset enough about how shitty of a job that they're doing, because at the end of the day, if no one points fingers, then no one was a piece of shit.
Right.
Yeah.
And I
'Cause
think
it's-
it just goes unnoticed. If it goes unnoticed and you just get, because you've been here X amount of
Yeah.
years for making that mistake, oh, that's what he does. Or, oh, don't do that next time. Bad.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Well,
and then it's just like a
yeah.
slap on the wrist. But
Yeah.
you have some new person who doesn't know the area. I frequently ask questions because I'm new to the area.
Yeah. Like, hey, should this go here? Or, hey, can this go here?
Right.
Yeah.
But if I messed up like that, I'd probably get written up, or I'd get spoken to.
Well, you would
At least a yellow folder.
that's the problem is sometimes you will only get talked to by the other crews.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
hey man, like I know you're new. This is kind of what you had. Yes, you're not in trouble for taking this person here. Like if it's a non-critical call or whatever, but like, hey, this place only does teleneurology.
Mm-hmm.
And now if they actually need a legit neurologist, they're going to have to get transferred out of here to the place where they have the contracted teleneurology through. So if you have a resolved symptomatic, borderline symptomatic, where you're like, I don't know, take them that extra 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
It's 20 fucking minutes.
Yep.
Like there's no problem.
Mm-mm.
I mean, whatever it is, take them there. Now, if it's like, hey, there's a difference between like, because then you have shit where it's like out in the Midwest and stuff like that, where you're like, hey, I have a hospital here, and this hospital is 20 minutes away from me, or I can take them to the hospital that's an hour and a half away. And you're like, okay, well, I understand. But like managing that time where you're like 20 minutes, it's 20 minutes, it's 30 minutes.
Right. Sometimes you're not
Like-
even doubling your transport time.
Yeah, yeah. It's just understand. We have so much power in fucking up someone's patient care that needs it. And not enough people take that seriously because they don't get enough grief from people. Like,
Mm-hmm.
It's just not, I don't know.
Yeah.
Not spoken about enough.
Our crew that we've been, that brought all of this up, I asked them, why did you come here? And is everything all right?
Mhm.
I asked them, why did you come here? And they said, oh, because the other facility was an hour away.
No, it
And
wasn't.
No, it wasn't.
It was
that
absolutely
was
not.
That was a lie.
Hmm.
And
I worked out there before.
if anything, it's the same distance.
Yeah.
And they just didn't want to go there.
It was probably an hour away once they got to the wrong facility.
Yeah.
The transfer was probably an hour away.
Yeah. Well, they had to transfer immediately
Mm-hmm.
within
Yeah.
minutes.
Yeah. Doctor said, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah. Keep your ass
Good for
in.
the doctor though.
Yeah.
I
Good.
don't think doctors need to do that more often because they can say that. If a nurse, no offense to nurses can't say that like to crews, and crews won't take that seriously.
Mhm.
If a doctor says this isn't the right facility, we're going to stabilize this patient, but it's still yours.
Yeah,
You're taking this patient. You
not
stay here.
going anywhere.
And if the crew puts up a fuss about it, they get on the phone with a supervisor,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the doctor personally, because that's not okay. It's not patient advocacy.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And like I said, if you're going to be an EMS, you need to be a patient advocate.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
There needs to be more accountability.
Absolutely.
That's very lacking.
Yeah. Well, and transparency. No one knows what we do.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's not much stuff like, and I know like not to like toot horns or do anything like that, but like there's not much stuff out there aside from like comedic stuff that actually knows the inner workings of first responders and EMS and fire department and medical transport, unless you're in it.
The
Like,
most honest depiction I have ever seen of being a 911 ambulance first responder is bringing out the dead.
That's funny. Yeah.
Yeah, which is crazy because
Yeah. Like
you
looking at a metro city. That's
Yeah.
That's
you
what
look
it's
at
like.
that movie and you're like, this is absurd. This never happens. But that is minus the drugs and alcohol being used on the ambulance. Now in this day and age, back 20 years ago, that was commonplace. But that is an honest depiction.
Yeah. You're going to get your teeth kicked in. And,
Yeah.
But again, it's
Also, the terrible stuff they see is real as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never beaten somebody up in an alleyway.
Yeah. But again, I think it goes back to like, if you're going to do this job, be a patient advocate, take the patient where they need to go.
Yes.
Do what you need to do.
Definitive care facility.
Yes. It's very easy when you ask someone, why'd you take them there? You're like, yeah, it's close to most appropriate. You're like, wrong. It's the closest, but it's not the most appropriate.
Right.
It needs to be, I took them to the most appropriate facility.
Right.
That's the answer.
Yep.
Because closest is the crutch that you can always lean on.
Yeah.
It's not, you need to take them to the hospital that will fix the problem or treat the problem that they're having right now. Not the closest hospital that may or may not be able to do it.
Yeah. And I think when they do kind of going back to what we talked about before, when they do QA, QI and they audit these run tickets internally, they should look at that tab and see the amount of people. Because I do it too. It's just like it's another box I need to check off on my report. But closest facility, I guarantee you, everybody just clicks that. It should say most appropriate facility.
Yeah, I think there is a tab that says something like that.
Yeah.
There are a couple in there.
There's
that
a few in
I
there.
click, but a lot of times it is closest facilities, and a lot of times we are transporting to the closest facility. But nowadays, when I first started, definitely was let's go to the closest facility. I don't care what's going on.
Yeah. Just get them there. It's a doctor's
You
problem.
throw in tombstones. Let's go to this tertiary facility.
Yeah.
I'm busy. Let's get it over with.
Yep.
And then some with the people doing the dumping patients at the facility, I was stationed right beside. And then there was a specific call that I ran where I was like, oh, we're wasting time. And we're not just wasting the patient's time, but we're wasting our own time doing this. I started taking people to more appropriate facilities or trying to convince them. And now at this point in my career, I'll tell people, they'll say, oh, I want to go to this hospital. I'm like, nope, we're not going there. I'm not taking you to that facility. We're going to this one because this is the appropriate care facility. This isn't an argument. You're going in my ambulance. This is where you're going.
And and that's knowing when to say that.
Right.
Is because, it's very easy. I mean, you can go into like tertiary, like walk-in clinics. Hey, they need to go here. And you're like, no, they don't need to go here. They need to go there because you're saying that because you are an affiliation of this.
Right.
You're not, the hospital that you were telling them to go to does not have the capabilities to take them there.
I called a physician.
But I called them and they accepted.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, anyone can accept anything.
Yeah.
But
they
don't have a cath lab in, so
right.
we're going to take them to a cath lab.
Yeah.
Like,
I had a patient. They had called. He had a ulcer on his foot.
Sure.
Just needed whatever. There's some pus coming out of it, and he said he called his doctor, and he said, oh, that needs to go to the hospital. So the wife did the right thing. They called a private ambulance service. Private ambulance service said, okay, hung up the phone, called 911. And then we get sent out, and they said, my doctor told me to go to this facility. And granted, yeah, it was appropriate because it was just an ulcer, but what does a doctor know about a wound? I mean, unless you're a wound clinic, then
right.
Maybe they obviously do rotations, but why these patients are listening to the wrong doctors? Like, oh, Joe Schmo is going to go to the facility that his primary care is out of, whether it's X facility or Y facility. Oh, I'm having a heart attack. I want to go to X facility. Well, X facility is a tertiary facility, and they don't have a cath lab. Well, that's where my doctors are. I have a cardiologist there. You might have a cardiologist there, but guess what? They don't have an emergency cath lab.
Yeah.
So you need to go here. And then you're
Right.
arguing with the patient. And that's when I've had situations where I get frustrated with the patient when I'm trying to explain to them, listen, you don't read the book, and I understand that. This is what's appropriate. We can bring you here, but they're going to say you're going here because they don't want that on their hands. They can't
Right.
do that. You're delaying your treatment. You
Yeah.
know, you're worsening yourself by doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's when it's tough. I get frustrated. And if you ask anyone I've worked with, even recently, you ask, like, I'll get frustrated. I'll start to raise my voice, not in an aggressive way or a mean way. Like, I'm telling you this. I'm saying, listen, please listen to me. This is appropriate. This is the right thing to do. Please go to the hospital. You're having this issue. You need to get checked out because something else could happen. Or we treat you and you don't want to go. And please, it's not going to last forever. This is going to wear off and we're going to be back here again. Please go to the hospital. Or this isn't the right facility. Please go to the right facility.
Yeah.
I just get frustrated and I raise my voice, and then people will tell me, hey, calm down. Like, why are you raising your voice? It's because I'm so passionate about patient advocacy. I'm trying to advocate for this patient, and he doesn't even want to advocate for himself.
Right.
So that's where I get frustrated, and that's when I might raise my voice to patient. I don't mean to. I'm just trying to do what's best for them, and they don't know better.
Yeah. And you're still pretty fresh faced
Yeah.
as well. You look young.
Mhm.
And I think that's another issue that I ran into for a long time, and you're probably running into as well. You get someone who's twice your age and you're trying to tell them what to do, and they just don't want it.
Mhm.
You're not a doctor. You're young.
You're a
you
kid.
You don't
Mhm.
know as much as I know.
Yep.
My cardiologist is at this facility. We're going there.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
just toughen up. Just tell them, be like, no,
Yeah.
you get in my ambulance. We're going to this facility.
Mm-hmm.
You need to go to the right place.
Right.
I
won't bring them to the wrong place. I'll
Right.
I'll call my supervisor or medical control.
You can take them to the wrong place. Now the problem, this is where you have to differentiate. You can take them to the wrong place if they are adamant and understand all of the risks of going to the wrong place. They've decided to go to the wrong place. I've
Right.
painted the picture. I've told you. I've given all of the information. I've even had my supervisor tell you this is the wrong place. But if you are going to say, like, I am going here, and I've told you that this is a terrible place to go, it's not going to fix the problem that you're currently having,
Mm-hmm.
I will still take you there. But I want you to know that the likelihood of you getting moved out is immense.
Right.
As long as they know that and can comprehend that, that's one thing. But it's when you have a person who's like, hey, I've been shot, or I have a penetrating injury, or I have even something, which is going to sound crazy, even something simple like I have an open fracture. Like, even if it's like a lower extremity fracture, like, hey,
Yeah.
I have an open lower extremity fracture. Even if it's not giant, it's just like little poke in this back end, right?
Yeah, even just to like the radius hole in the poke
Yeah,
out,
yeah,
which
yeah.
is a pretty common
Which
arm
is a very
fracture.
common thing. Hey, that person needs to see a trauma specialist right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is this tertiary facility trauma specialist? No. Tell them if they're like, no, you explain the risk and they still want to go there. Okay, they'll still go there because there's at least you're getting them to a place where a doctor is going to send them out. Now, it's the issue that we run into, and this is where, we should probably wrap it up because we're at like an hour. But like, this is where we are really trying to hammer home is it's the people that say, I will take you anywhere you say you want to go with me not caring about where you're going.
Right.
Because if you know that person needs to go to see a specialist or will inevitably go see a specialist because of an injury and or illness, and they say, hey, take me here, and you in your head know, hey, they don't have the specialty there, or it's the weekend and it's 10 o'clock at night, their generally exploratory cath lab is most certainly not going to be in. Don't just go, and be an idiot and take them there.
Mm-hmm.
Explain to them, hey, I want the best care for you. this is where you should go. I want you to go here. Please let me take you there. And if they are continuing to fight against that, at least you have made your argument and that you can explain to the staff when you get there, hey,
Yeah.
I did everything I can to take them to this facility. I'm sorry. But it's the ones that just bobblehead and go, I'll take you wherever
Yep.
you want, and I don't give a fuck. Because
or they delay patient care even more to convince them to go to
Yeah.
an inappropriate facility,
correct. Yeah, because it's closer.
or just outright lie.
Yeah, because my hot pockets are in the fucking
Yeah.
toaster oven. So, well, yeah, that was a long episode.
Yeah. There's a lot of passion in that one.
Yeah, there's a lot of frustration in that.
Mm-hmm.
That
Well, shoot, we're pushing 30 years of experience, and I would assume
Yeah.
all three of us have. I feel like we have similar sentiments on that.
mhm.
And I would like to believe that most people that work in this career have similar sentiments on that, but there are so many that are just.
It's easy to buy into the burnout.
Mhm.
It
It's
is.
easy where you're like, they don't pay me enough. I work too much. I get my ass beat at work. All of those are true.
Yeah, quit.
Then also, yeah, go do anything else. Go work in construction.
Before it's too late,
Because
just opt out.
because now you're going to kill people
Mhm.
or you're going to hurt people by you being a lazy piece of shit. Like you're not going to provide the care. You're not going to take them to the definitive place you need to go.
Yeah.
You need to recognize your burnout and figure out how do I address this burnout, like reasonably.
So, moral of the story is use your resources. Don't be a piece of shit.
Use your resources. Don't be a piece of shit.
Fair enough.
And tell people, like, if you see someone, like, if you're like, hey, you doing okay? Like, you seem a bit
They're never doing okay.
a bit crispy.
Even if they say, yeah, I'm fine. They're not.
Crispier than normal. Like, say, hey, what's going on? Like,
Yep.
Is everything okay?
Use some PTO. Take a
Yeah.
break.
Take a break.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, that
Brian,
That's it.
genuinely, thank you for coming on talking
Thank
to
you.
us.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Please
Yes.
come back.
Of course.
dude, I'm bringing donuts next time.
Oh, some Boston cream donuts.
Huh?
Is that what they're called?
I'll come back if you guys drop that name.
What name?
I'll just
Right.
buy donuts
Donuts are good.
from Cumbies.
Just like pinpoint it again.
Dude,
It's a big city.
you sound like Donnie Wahlberg.
Yeah.
You're
You
not
look-
fucking hiding it.
Thank you for coming on, Donnie.
Like,
Yeah, whatever.
yeah.
Thank you for coming on, Mark.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Jeez. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thanks for watching.
Mm-hmm.